Hi, my name is Madison. I am 19 years old. And I never imagined I would be the kind of person to write something like this on Reddit. But what has been happening in my life feels like something out of a television drama. I grew up being known as the responsible one in my family. My father, Robert, is 46, and he married my stepmother, Carla, when I was 15. Carla is 38, and she has 4 children from a previous relationship. Harper, who is 7, Liam, who is 5, Mason, who is 3, and baby Ella, who just turned 1. I have always been the person who helped with everything. Babysitting my younger cousins for free, running errands for my parents, helping my father through late shifts when my mother left us years ago. He used to tell me that he appreciated me and I believed him. But when Carla moved in, everything shifted. At first, Carla was sweet and charming. She made an effort to get to know me, always complimenting how mature I was for my age. I wanted to believe she cared about me, so I did my best to be helpful. That kindness disappeared quickly. Within a few months of her living with us, I turned into her unpaid nanny. Carla had a part-time job at a salon, but most of the time she claimed to be working online, doing some kind of consulting job none of us ever understood. What became obvious was that she preferred to hand me the responsibility for her kids. She started small, asking me to watch Harper and Liam for an hour or two while she ran errands, but soon it escalated into full days and weekends. I was 17, working part-time at a grocery store, taking advanced placement classes, and trying to prepare for college, but I was also essentially raising her kids. She used guilt to keep me in line. When I tried to say no, she would sigh and say things like, "You are so good with them, Maddie. You do not want your siblings to feel unwanted, do you?" That word always hit me hard. Siblings. They were not my siblings. They were her children. I cared about Harper and Liam and even Mason, who was a toddler at the time, but I never agreed to become a second parent to them. My father was working late shifts and picking up overtime, and he rarely saw how much I was doing. Carla always acted sweet around him, so he never questioned her version of events. I held out until I was 18, when I finally got accepted into a local community college. I was overjoyed. I managed to find a small apartment off campus with a roommate named Jenna. Rent was tight, but I had been saving for years. I thought my father would be upset, but he surprised me by being supportive and proud of me. Carla, on the other hand, was furious. She accused me of abandoning the family, claiming I was selfish for moving out. It was tense for weeks, but I refused to back down. Moving out was one of the best decisions I ever made. I kept contact with my father, visiting him every other Sunday for dinner, but I avoided Carla. Life was peaceful for a while. Then, 2 months ago, everything changed. I received a call from a daycare center I had never heard of. They wanted me to confirm that I had been watching Carla's 4 children for free over the past year, because she had applied for a childcare assistance program. My heart dropped. They had a form with my full name, address, and a statement claiming I was providing 40 hours a week of unpaid childcare. They even had a fake pay stub for me, showing that I was earning $0. I asked them to email me a copy, and when I opened the attachment I nearly fainted. The signature on the bottom was mine. Except it was not. It was from a completely different document I had signed months earlier. She had traced it. I called my father immediately. He sounded shocked, but he asked me to give Carla a chance to explain before doing anything drastic. When I confronted Carla over the phone, she dismissed my concerns. She said I was overreacting and that she only did it to qualify for benefits. She told me I was not going to get in trouble because it is not like you are losing money. Hearing that sent me over the edge. I hung up and drove to the local police station that same evening to file a report. A week later, a detective called me back. He told me that Carla's forgery was not an isolated incident. She had been applying for multiple benefits using false information. They were opening a formal investigation into her actions. I blocked Carla's number, but she started calling my father, crying and claiming I had ruined her life. My father begged me to drop it. He said, "She just made a mistake, Maddie." I told him it was not a mistake. It was fraud and I would not protect her. Things escalated again a few days later when a Child Protective Services worker showed up at my apartment. Apparently, Carla had told them that I was neglectful while babysitting, and that I had left the children unsupervised multiple times. The caseworker wanted to assess whether I was safe to be around children. I felt my stomach twist with fear. I showed her everything. My college class schedule, pay stubs from my grocery store job, and my lease showing I lived nowhere near Carla's house. The caseworker's face was grim as she took notes, clearly disturbed by the lies Carla had told. She assured me she would document everything. That was the moment I realized Carla was willing to destroy my reputation if it meant saving herself. I knew I needed help. I drained half of my savings to hire a lawyer. Jenna, my roommate, was incredible. She sat with me late at night as I organized paperwork and emails. My lawyer sent a cease and desist letter to Carla, demanding she stop using my name and signature for anything. Carla retaliated by posting on Facebook that I was abandoning my family and leaving her to struggle with 4 kids. Old family friends started messaging me, asking if I was really leaving her in such a bad situation. I sent screenshots of the forged documents to a few of them. Some apologized for judging me. Others simply stopped responding. 2 weeks ago, I received another update from the detective. Carla is officially facing charges for fraud and forgery. They discovered she had also been falsifying daycare receipts and lying about her income to claim extra tax credits. CPS is heavily involved now because Mason and Ella were found home alone during one of Carla's so-called errands. The detective told me that my testimony and documents would be critical in the case. Then everything exploded. Last night my father called me, and I barely recognized his voice. He told me CPS had removed the 2 youngest kids, Mason and Ella, and placed them in temporary foster care because Carla had no safe childcare plan. Harper and Liam were staying with their biological father. He sounded broken. He said Carla was devastated, and he begged me to testify for him in court so he could at least get visitation rights. I agreed because I do not want the kids to suffer more than they already have, but I told him very clearly that I would not lie for Carla. He was silent for a long time, then said he understood. Court was brutal in every way imaginable. I had never been inside a courtroom before this, and I had always imagined them as quiet, serious places where everything felt orderly. Instead, it was chaotic and tense, like a scene from a movie where the air feels heavy even before the judge walks in. Carla showed up in a modest dress, with her hair pulled back and tissues in her hand, already sniffling before proceedings even began. She looked small and pitiful, like she was preparing to play the victim from the start. Her lawyer leaned close to her, whispering constantly while she dabbed at her eyes. I had to stop myself from glaring at her because I knew the judge would be watching everything. When her side started talking, Carla put on a performance I had only seen glimpses of before. She painted herself as an overworked mother of 4, abandoned by everyone, forced into desperate measures to survive. She claimed I had a vendetta against her because she had tried to parent me when I was a rebellious teenager. She told the court I was ungrateful, that she had treated me like her own daughter, and that I was punishing her out of spite. Hearing her twist the story so completely made my blood boil, but I had promised my lawyer I would stay composed. My lawyer's turn was like watching someone peel back layers of lies with surgical precision. She laid out the forged forms, showing the judge the identical tracing of my signature from a completely unrelated document. She presented my work schedule, my class schedule, and my lease, all proving I had not been at Carla's house when she claimed I was babysitting. She displayed the cease and desist letter we had sent and showed that Carla had continued using my name even after being warned. Then she moved on to the CPS accusations. Every claim Carla had made about me neglecting her kids was refuted with evidence, photos, time-stamped receipts, and even testimonies from my professors and manager. The judge was visibly angry by the time my lawyer finished. He leaned forward, flipping through papers, and his voice was sharp as he addressed Carla. She lowered her head, her tears flowing more dramatically now, but it was clear no one was buying her act anymore. He reprimanded her for attempting to weaponize the system against me, and for putting her children in dangerous situations. Carla was ordered to complete parenting classes, pay fines, and cooperate fully with CPS. The kids would remain in foster care for now, as the court determined there was no safe plan for them to return home. Watching Carla leave the courtroom looking pale and shaken was surreal. This woman had controlled so much of my teenage life, constantly making me feel guilty and responsible for everything, and now she was being held accountable. But instead of feeling triumphant, I felt exhausted. It was like a weight had been lifted, but it left me drained, like my body had forgotten how to relax after months of stress. After court, my father approached me. He looked older than I had ever seen him, like the past few months had aged him by years. He admitted he had ignored too many red flags, and had chosen to believe Carla over me because it was easier than facing the truth. Hearing him say that hurt, but it also felt like a turning point. For the first time in years, he apologized for letting Carla treat me like free labor. He told me he was proud of me for standing up for myself, though his voice was thick with regret. Since that day, we have been meeting for lunch every week. At first, it was awkward, like we were two strangers learning to talk again, but he has been making an effort. He listens more now, asks about my classes, and even offered to help me with tuition next semester. It is bittersweet because I can see how deeply he cares. Yet I also see the guilt he carries. I have decided to let him rebuild our relationship at his own pace because I know this whole situation has shaken him too. The fallout from Carla's actions has been bigger than I expected. A few days after court, I found out she owes over $10,000 in back taxes because of fraudulent childcare claims she had been submitting for years. She had been creating false receipts, claiming she was paying someone to babysit her kids so she could claim extra tax credits. The IRS started investigating after the police forwarded evidence from my case. Carla has been scrambling to blame everyone else. She told some relatives that I had framed her, but thankfully, the paperwork spoke for itself. I kept every pay stub, every class syllabus, and every schedule from the past 2 years. Every claim she made fell apart under scrutiny because I had proof I was at work or in class during every time she claimed I was babysitting. Carla lost custody of Mason and Ella permanently. I found out about it during a follow-up call with a detective who had been handling my case, and even though I knew this outcome was coming, hearing it said out loud made my stomach twist. Mason and Ella's foster family had stepped up, offering to adopt them, and the judge approved the plan. Harper and Liam's father was granted full custody of them too. In just a few months, Carla went from having 4 kids in her care to none at all. It felt strange, almost surreal, to think back to the nights when I was the one feeding Mason bottles at 3 in the morning or carrying Harper to bed after she fell asleep on the couch. They were safe now, and that was the only thing that mattered. But it was heartbreaking to realize how much those kids had been caught in the crossfire of their mother's choices. Not long after that ruling, Carla officially moved out of my dad's house. It had been her home for 3 years, and now all of her chaos was being packed into garbage bags and cardboard boxes. She didn't leave quietly. She sent me a long angry text the night before she left, accusing me of destroying her life, claiming I had been jealous of her from the start, and insisting I would regret ever crossing her. I read it twice, not because it hurt me but because it was so full of venom and denial that I almost couldn't believe she had written it. I deleted it without replying. There was nothing to say. My dad filed for divorce shortly after she moved out. He told me he had already met with a lawyer and signed papers. Watching him finally take action was a strange mix of relief and sadness. He had defended her for so long, brushed off her behavior, and asked me to just keep the peace. Now he was alone in a house that felt quieter than I had ever known it. He started therapy not long after that, and I was proud of him for it. He told me he wanted to understand how he had let things spiral so far, and why he had ignored so many red flags. Hearing that was healing in its own way, though it also hurt to know how much he blamed himself. I started therapy too. It was something I had been putting off for months because I kept telling myself I was fine. I had moved out, I was in school, I was working, and I was independent. But when everything settled and I had a moment to breathe, I realized how much tension I had been carrying for years. I had been living in survival mode since I was 15, juggling school, work, and the emotional weight of being treated like an unpaid live-in nanny. Sitting in a therapist's office and saying all of that out loud was harder than I expected. But it was also the first time I felt like someone truly understood just how heavy it all had been. The day Carla officially moved out was the first time in years that I felt like I could exhale. Jenna and I celebrated by ordering way too much takeout and watching movies all night. We curled up on the couch in our tiny apartment, surrounded by empty cartons and soda cans, and I remember laughing harder than I had in months. It wasn't just about Carla being gone. It was about reclaiming peace, about feeling safe and in control of my life again. Financially, things have started looking better too. I had been terrified that the legal fees would bury me, but I managed to scrape through. I got a small scholarship, and my lawyer said I might be able to sue Carla for damages since she used my identity in her fraud. I haven't decided yet. Carla is serving a short jail sentence after pleading guilty to fraud. I never thought it would go that far, not because she didn't deserve it, but because I honestly didn't expect the justice system to hold her fully accountable. Yet, when the prosecutors laid out the evidence against her, document after document, every forged signature, every fake receipt, every time she used my name to commit fraud, it was undeniable. She had left a paper trail a mile long, and all of it pointed back to her. When she entered that guilty plea, it felt like the final chapter of a nightmare I had been living for years was finally coming to a close. Hearing she would spend time in jail gave me mixed emotions. On one hand, there was a sense of justice. She had manipulated, lied, and put those kids in danger. She had weaponized guilt against me and tried to ruin my name. But on the other hand, I couldn't help but think about Harper, Liam, Mason, and Ella and how this was their mom. It wasn't just me who suffered because of her choices. Her kids were the ones paying the highest price. No child deserves to grow up watching their parents self-destruct like this. My dad has been doing a lot of soul-searching since everything happened. It's like he's seeing his own life through a different lens, realizing how much he missed and how badly he failed to protect both me and those kids. We've been slowly repairing our relationship. It hasn't been easy. There were years of resentment built up in me, but he's been patient and consistent. He told me he's proud of me for standing up for myself, even though it tore the family apart, and I could see in his face that he really meant it. That moment felt like a turning point, like he was finally acknowledging how much I went through under his roof while he looked the other way. The kids have been the bright spot in all of this. Harper and Liam sent me a handmade card through their dad. It was covered in stickers, glitter glue, and misspelled words, but it was the sweetest thing I had seen in a long time. They wrote that they missed me, and Harper drew a picture of all of us together. I sat on my bed and stared at it for so long that night. Then Mason's foster mom sent me a photo of him and Ella, both smiling in a sunny backyard, wearing little matching outfits. Ella had gotten so big, and Mason looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. I broke down crying for an hour, not because I was sad, but because I finally felt relief. They were safe, truly safe, and thriving without the chaos they had been born into. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. CPS reached out to me and asked if I would consider being a long-term contact for the kids as they grow up. They explained that kids in foster care, especially when adoption is involved, often benefit from having safe, consistent adults from their past remain part of their lives. They said I had been a source of stability for them, even when I felt like I was drowning. Hearing that changed something deep in me. I had spent so many years feeling like I was just the unpaid babysitter, like I was invisible in my own home, like nothing I did mattered because it was never enough for Carla. But hearing from professionals that I had been their safe place, their person, made me feel like all of that struggle had meant something. I told CPS I would absolutely stay in their lives. I don't know exactly what that will look like in the future, but I know I will always be there for them. The idea that they could grow up knowing I love them, that I fought for them, and that I'm not going anywhere makes all the sleepless nights, all the tears, all the court dates feel worth it. Carla thought she could manipulate everyone forever. She underestimated me, thinking I would stay quiet, that I wouldn't fight back, that I would let her use my name and reputation as a shield for her lies. Instead, she lost everything she tried to control because she refused to take responsibility for her actions. I used to feel powerless in her shadow, constantly cleaning up her messes, watching my own life slip through my fingers. Now I feel like I've finally taken my life back. Standing up for myself was terrifying. There were days I wanted to give up, days I felt guilty for blowing up the family, days I wondered if I was overreacting. But I don't regret a single thing. My dad is learning how to be a real parent again. The kids are safe and thriving in homes where they are cared for. And for the first time in years, I feel like I am truly living my own life. I've started planning for the future. College, internships, friendships, and I can do it without feeling like I'm carrying the weight of an entire family on my back. Looking back, I see a younger version of myself at 15, scared and overwhelmed, desperately trying to please everyone. I wish I could tell her that it's okay to say no, that it's okay to stand up for herself, that her voice matters. It's been a long, messy journey to get here, but I finally believe it. I'm not just the responsible one anymore. I'm someone who survived, fought back, and created a life worth living.